All right, hello. Welcome to the first ever Hold My Helmet football podcast, and I'm your host, Will Reichling. Now, this is my first ever football podcast, so I hope you like, subscribe, share, and comment below with any suggestions on future podcast episodes. Now, I will get into a little bit later who I am and how I got here, but first I figured I'd start with some football, since that's what everyone's here for. So, what I wanted my first ever segment of my first ever podcast episode to be was who I think are the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL currently today. Now, this is based off a little bit of resume, history, a little bit of last year. This is just who I think is the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL going into this season. So, all right, let's begin. Now, I did want to start with a few people who I left off the list. I left off Kyler Murray because he's injured going into the season. There's a lot of chaos going on with him, a lot of problems with ownership and his contract, and is he a leader? And he's hurt going to the season, so I figured I would leave him off this list and I would not consider him. Regardless, I think he would be probably on the outskirts of this list, so I figured I'd leave him off. And Deshaun Watson I didn't consider either. Going into last season, I mean, he missed almost a year and a half of football, and he just didn't look good. He struggled, and he looked like a shell of himself. Now, do I think he'll improve going to the season? Yes, I do think so, but that might not be good enough to crack this list anyway, because there's so many good young quarterbacks, especially in the AFC, and I'll get to that later. So those are the two quarterbacks I left off and didn't even consider on this list. Number one, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. I mean, I'm not going to get deep into this. He has the highest passer rating in NFL history. I mean, he passed Rodgers very early in his career, and he's just held on to that since then. 5 straight AFC Championship appearances. I mean, this guy's clutch. He plays hurt. He's coachable. He's a good kid. Him and Andy Reid are the perfect combination. I mean, as long as Andy Reid's there and Mahomes is there, he's the perfect face of the league. And he's going to win more Super Bowls, so they have a long runway moving forward. I say another 10 years of excellence from the Chiefs. Number 2, I have to put Joe Burrow there. Now, I think Joe Burrow passed Josh Allen last season as the number 2 quarterback in the league. He's situationally elite. I mean, that Bills game, that was an embarrassment. That showed how much Joe Burrow fully pulled away from Josh Allen. Now, do I think Josh Allen's great still? Absolutely. But, I mean, there's been some games where Joe Burrow's first half, he struggles a little bit sometimes. Then he always finds a way to pick it up when his team needs it and pull out a victory. Like he said, as long as he's there, the Super Bowl window is open for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, number 3, I have Josh Allen. Now, I did say that Burrow pulled away from him as the number 2 quarterback, but he's still excellent. I mean, let's be honest, he's still great. Now, they definitely need to develop a consistent running game for him, but I think he still has all the tools. If you want to build a perfect quarterback prospect coming into the draft, I mean, it would be Josh Allen. He's huge. He's got a rocket arm. I mean, he could run. I mean, he's everything you want in a 2023 NFL quarterback. I'm not crazy about their offensive line. I do like their center. What if they lose Stephon Diggs, though? I mean, he's hinted at wanting a trade, but I think he's probably going to stay there. There has been some regression without Brian Daboll. And look, I mean, his numbers did look similar to the year before. I mean, his numbers in the regular season were still great. But in the playoffs, he struggled. He struggled against Miami, and he struggled against Cincinnati. So there was some regression there under Ken Dorsey. So he's still number 3. I don't see him dropping past number 3 anytime soon, but his turnover-prone behavior has to warrant some question. So, will Josh Allen be good in this league? Absolutely. Will he win a Super Bowl? I think he will one day, but, he's going to have to overcome some hurdles in this league. That's all. Now, number 4, I have Justin Herbert. He's a physical specimen, too, in his own right. Also a rocket arm. He could also move. He's also very coachable. He's a great kid. Like I said about Josh Allen, same thing with Justin Herbert. He's everything you want in a quarterback in 2023. Now, for most of last season, he carried the Chargers, and he didn't have Keenan Allen, didn't have Mike Williams, and he still carried that team to the playoffs. I mean, with just Gerald Everett, Palmer and Carter. So he still had Eckler for the whole year, but I mean, it was at one point he was Joshua Palmer as his number 1 receiver. So that just says it all. They brought in Kellen Moore from Dallas, so I think he's going to take another step forward this year. Now, you have to remember, his rookie season, they had the worst offensive line in the league, and he set rookie records for touchdown passes, I'm pretty sure, for yards. So he's legit. And then the second season, his defense was terrible, and he still managed to barely miss the playoff. They were into the very last second against Las Vegas. So, I mean, they just missed the playoffs in the second season. And in the third season, he made the playoffs. So Justin Herbert is... Now, he's one person that I don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl because he's on the Los Angeles Chargers, which that's a team where they always have high expectations and they always let people down. Now, can he overcome that? Absolutely, because I think he's a great quarterback. But, there's some questions now. There's some questions, and there's some expectations considering they have Kellen Moore now as the offensive coordinator. That Jaguars game was an embarrassment, though. I mean, that was a complete embarrassment. The fact that you couldn't put away a team when you're up 27 points is just pathetic. So, you got to be better than that. And that's why they brought in Kellen Moore. So they're going to be better than that. I think the Chargers will be viable for contention in the AFC this year. I mean, it's at this point, it's becoming now or never. It's like, you got all the tools. You got to win now before you pay Justin Herbert a big contract, because a lot of these quarterbacks that are making the Super Bowl, they're either Patrick Mahomes or they're quarterbacks on a rookie contract with a loaded roster. So you got to move now if you're the Chargers. Number 5, I got Aaron Rodgers there. Now, I know there was some slight drop-off last season. We got to remember, he had a broken thumb. He didn't have great chemistry with his receivers. Now, I know a lot of that is his fault, but part of me thinks he was just done with Green Bay overall. He's had a long career there. I heard there was that story from Romeo Dobbs they asked him if he ever hung out with Aaron out of football, out of practice, and he said no, never been to his house, never hung out with him out of practice, and that was crazy to me. That was a little crazy to me. But looking at him on the Jets, I mean, he's doing everything you want. He's bonding with the players, going to Ranger games, Knick games. He's practicing already. He wouldn't attend OTAs for the last 2 seasons in Green Bay. So, you see everything you want out of Rodgers. I can't put him lower than 5 because the last 2 and 3 seasons ago, he was back-to-back MVP. So you can't drop him lower than 5. If he has another down year, I'll think about it. But right now, I have to have Aaron Rodgers number 5, considering he's four-time MVP. Future Hall of Famer, and I think he still has something left in the tank. Now, notice how every quarterback I have in my top 5 was in the AFC. Now, I feel like this is the case because Tom Brady, Big Ben, Peyton Manning were dominating the league for decades, and that caused a lot of bad AFC teams to be drafting very high in the draft, like the Bills, Josh Allen, the Bengals, Joe Burrow, the Chargers, Justin Herbert, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. So that caused a huge amount of young quarterback talent in the AFC conference, and now it looks like it's lopsided because you had a lot of quarterbacks in the NFC staying with their teams until they were very old, like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford. Even though Matt Stafford went from the Lions to the Rams, he stayed in the NFC. So you had a lot of old quarterbacks still in the NFC, and then you had Tom Brady even going to the NFC late in his career. So now you see the NFC trying to catch up with the AFC, and you see people like the teams like the Panthers drafting Bryce Young, Kyler Murray was drafted a few years ago. So Jalen Hurts. So you're starting to see some young talent in the NFC, but it's right now it's very lopsided. It's very drastic. And in the NFC, all you have to do is have a competent quarterback and a good defense and a good running game, and you could probably make the playoffs. In the AFC, are you special at quarterback? Because if you don't have a special quarterback in the AFC, you're not even going to make the playoffs. You could be a great team in the NFC and not even make the playoffs in the AFC. A 10-win team in the NFC might be a 7-win team in the AFC. So, a little lopsided right now. Let me get back into my top 10. And number 6, I have Jalen Hurts. He could have very well been MVP last season if he didn't get hurt. And adding A.J. Brown was huge for that development for Jalen Hurts. But that Super Bowl performance he put on was one for the ages. Now, I think he's going to get better. He just seems he's all about winning, and he's all about getting better. And he could even be higher as he gets better. I love his leadership, his work ethic. I don't doubt that he'll be even better next year. But right now, he's by far the best quarterback in the NFC, and he's only number 6 on this list. So, I mean, he might switch with Rodgers going into the season. After the season, he could very easily be in this top 5 after the season. He just has to do the same thing next year. I got to see one more year out of it. He's very young, and it's only been one season, so we got to see some. We got to see some of the same next year, and I think we will. So things are looking up for Jalen Hurts. Big contract. So number 7, Lamar Jackson. Say what you want about Lamar, but he's electric. I mean, every time he touches the ball, you think he might take it to the house. People don't really give him as much credit as a passer as I think he is. I think he's better of a passer than people think. Now, I was beginning to question his judgment based on how he didn't hire an agent. But he got the big contract, so hey, maybe he knows more than we do. I don't know. People like to bash on Lamar, but he's won 70 to 75% of his games in this league. I mean, like I said, in the AFC, you gotta be special at quarterback. So, as far as that, Lamar Jackson, I mean, like Justin Herbert, he's got to have more success in January. I think it's been steps with Lamar. He made the playoffs, was bad his first season. Then the second season, he made the playoffs again and won a playoff game. And his third season got hurt. Fourth season got hurt. It's been a little bit of regression, but I do think he's still special. And he just wanted the contract. Now he might come out motivated. So I think Lamar has another 5, 6, 7 years of excellence. Does he last long term? I don't necessarily know the answer to that question, but I know that for the next 3, 4, 5 years, you have a shot if you're the Baltimore Ravens. So Lamar can't be lower than 7, just based on you don't win MVP by accident, So he's great. He's a great quarterback. Okay, so number 8, Trevor Lawrence. Like Jalen Hurts, I would like to see one more legitimate season from him, but he showed a lot of growth and a lot of promise last season, especially after that first season of disaster with Urban Meyer. Now, in his last 9 games, he had 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, so that, especially in a playoff push in the AFC South to win the division, I mean, he really showed that he can come through with his team when they need it the most. So other than John Elway and Andrew Luck, he's the greatest prospect coming out of college that I've ever seen. I wasn't alive for Elway. I mean, his last couple of years I was, but I didn't watch then. So, I mean, I watched a lot of John Elway highlights, and you see a lot of that from Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot of similarities in their games. Great size, great arm, can move, very intelligent. I mean, very bright future for the Jaguar fans. I mean, he's going to be top 5 in this list eventually. Now, once you get past 8, it's a huge drop off. Now you have a lot of clutter. Okay, now it becomes very debatable. I think we all think those top 8 quarterbacks are the top 8 quarterbacks. Now the order might be different, but I think we can all agree, give or take 1 or 2 players, that is the top 8 in the league. Now, I have about 3 or 4 guys that could all fight for that 9, 10 spot, but you have to pick. You guys might not agree with it, but this is who I think are the number 9 and number 10 quarterbacks in the league going into this season. Number 9, I have Matt Stafford. Look, I know a lot of you are going to freak out hearing that, but 2 years ago, he threw 41 touchdowns and almost 5,000 yards, 100 passer rating. I mean, he's going to have Cooper Kupp back. He won the Super Bowl. I don't think he's washed yet. I could be completely wrong. The elbow could be worse than I thought, but I'm not ready to write him off as being washed just yet. With Sean McVay, too, I think anything's possible. He's coming back this season, so I think especially with the draft, they wanted to focus on offense. So I think this is going to be a bounce-back season for the Rams. I think they might make the playoffs. I don't want to set that in. I think they could be an 8-9 win team just because you don't have great talent on the offensive line. You had a lot of injuries in that line last year too, but I have to put them at 9 until I see another drop-off season from Matt Stafford. Now, number 10, I'm going to put Tua. I was a little bit of a hater of Tua early on. But when he plays, he wins. He just wins, and he puts up numbers. So at a certain point, you have to admit when you're wrong. So I'm going to pivot on Tua, and I think Tua is a top 10 quarterback right now. Could it be because of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? I don't know, but he had an over 100 passer rating last season, so you can't write him off. If he holds up, stays healthy, they're going to win games. The Dolphins and the Jets are going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Tua he performs. I mean, he's a little small. He kind of gets thrown around like a rag doll, but he hits his receivers. He's accurate, and he wins. He wins football games since he's gotten to this league. So that's my top 10. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Stafford, and Tua Tagovailoa. So that's my top 10. Now, Cousins, Goff, and Dak were all close. Now, you can interchange those three for 11, 12, and 13. But Kirk Cousins kind of shies away in the big moment. He puts up numbers, but it seems like in the biggest games he disappears. He shrinks. That Giants game last year, I mean, he wasn't terrible, but did he step up? I mean, did he will his team to victory? I didn't see that. So how can I put him in my top 10? Jared Goff, I like Jared Goff, but he could be limited, especially when he doesn't have a great offensive line and he doesn't have a good run game. I mean, he can't really move out of the pocket. So when he doesn't have a great offensive line, he struggles. So I have him right on the outskirts. Maybe at 11 or 12, but I can't. That's also another reason I can't put Goff in my top 10. Dak is a mixture of those two things. He needs to be carried. He can't carry. I think Dak Prescott's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. He needs a great offensive line. He needs a good running game. He needs players around him. He needs a good defense, and then he'll win a lot of games. But when all those things fall apart and you have Dak throwing more than 35, 40 times, you're going to struggle on offense. And that's proven. This is a fact. So while I like Dak Prescott and he has a lot of intangibles you would like in your franchise quarterback, I can't trust him in the big moment. So how can I put Dak in my top 10? Regular season, yeah, he puts up some numbers. That's why I said I like him. But he shies. He's, like I said, a mixture of Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff. He's limited, and he shies away in the big moment. So that's my top 10. Those are my outskirts of the top 10. Now, for my next segment, I would like to get into Aaron Rodgers joining the New York Jets. Now, I would like to add that I actually am a New York Jets fan, so I might have a little bias sometimes when I talk about the New York Jets, but I will try my best to be impartial and to show that I could be logical when I'm talking about the New York Jets. I don't want to be a crazy Jet fan on here. I mean, I talk about NFL. I'm not talking about just the Jets. I'm talking about the NFL. So, bear with me, okay? I don't want to sound like a crazy Jet fan all the time, but I might sometimes. So, like I said, bear with me. So, last year was Aaron Rodgers' worst season in the NFL. Even then, it would be one of the best seasons in history of the New York Jets as far as starting quarterbacks. I mean, 26 touchdowns. Other than Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2015, name the last Jets quarterback that threw 26 touchdowns or more. I know it. Can you name it? No, you can't, because I'm pretty sure it was 1998 Vinny Testaverde. So, I mean, this was a no-brainer for the Jets. I mean, parts of the reason like I said before, parts of the reason for his down season last year, broke his thumb, no chemistry with the receivers. Like I said, his own doing. He could have very well been with them in the offseason, and he chose not to. Part of that, I think, was just because he was just done with the Green Bay organization. He got a little bit rubbed the wrong way when they parted with some receivers like Jordy Nelson. There's been some examples that he's listed where the organization didn't necessarily treat some of the players he liked well, and they got rid of them. I think that rubbed him the wrong way. Now, should he just respond the way he did? Absolutely not. I'm not condoning Aaron Rodgers. I just think he needed a change of scenery. I think he wants to come into the Jets team as a leader, and I don't see how you don't have him as a contender in the AFC. I definitely think they're a contender in the AFC East. Now, like I said before, what is Josh Allen without Brian Dable? I still have him as my number 3 quarterback in the NFL, but like I said in the playoffs, there's been some regression, and what if they lose Stephon Diggs? Like I said, I'm not crazy about their offensive line. I do like their center. They've also lost some pieces on defense. And same with Miami. What if Tua goes down? So I think the Jets are right in there. They're right in the mix. I say they win about 10 or 11 games. I think 10-7 is a realistic number, but they're going to be a playoff team. And if they're not a playoff team, this is the ultimate failure. They got to make the playoffs. I think he bounces back this year, maybe throws 30, 35 touchdowns. I don't think he's washed. Do I think he's going to be MVP Aaron Rodgers? Probably not, but I think he's going to be better than last season. They better make the playoffs, because if they don't make the playoffs this season, it's a disaster. I think they're going to be fighting with Miami. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that. Maybe both of them make the playoffs, but it might come down to that. So the talent is kind of neck and neck. I mean, Miami might have a little bit more offensive talent, but that might not necessarily be true, because Garrett Wilson might become Devontae Adams. I'm not sure. He was special last year. He might be special this year. So I would like to get into what exactly is Kyler Murray as a quarterback in this league. Now, I think he's talented. Am I crazy about his mental and his emotional awareness? Not really. The whole video game thing in the contract, wasn't crazy about that. I saw him yelling at coaches and players on the sideline. Wasn't crazy about that. But I saw some lists. I'm not going to get into who made these lists. I'm not going to call people out right now. But I saw some lists that have him at the bottom of the league as far as ranking quarterbacks. And I saw one that had him 12 or 13 in the NFC. What are we talking about right now? You think Daniel Jones is better than Kyler Murray? I mean, let's stop. And anyone who thinks that's true, do you watch football, or do you just look at the stats after the game? I mean, Kyler Murray could be special sometimes. Now, is he a little undersized and gets hurt? Sometimes, yes. And I do think he needs to improve on being a leader. But if we're talking about talent, the guy could be a top 10 quarterback. I had him in my top 10 previously. I can't put him there now just from all the chaos that he's caused. But you've seen progression from him every season. His first season, he showed promise, didn't make the playoffs, were a bad team. His second season, they started off hot, almost made the playoffs, barely missed it. He improved statistically. His third season, they make the playoffs, get killed in the playoffs. It's steps in this league, It's not just always shooting for the moon like Patrick Mahomes. Sometimes there's levels, there's layers like onions. I understand that he is flaky, I see it. If they get the number 1 pick, yes, pick Caleb Williams. Move on from him. Absolutely. If you're going to get a talent like that, that's better than Kyler Murray. I'll agree with that. But if you're the other teams in the NFL and you don't have a quarterback, I would be taking phone calls on this guy all day, okay? I would be sitting there thinking I could fix him. I have an idea of how these GMs and owners think. And this guy, these things are fixable. The talent is there. And this is a top 10 talent. So, we gotta remind ourselves that a couple of years ago, we were calling this guy an MVP candidate. So to say that he's, a bottom feeder in this league, I don't necessarily agree with that. All right, before I end this podcast, I figured I'd get into a little bit of who exactly I am. Now, I've played football my entire life. I wasn't necessarily good. I was okay, but I play flag football now. And, something was always missing. I always felt like I wanted to do something where I'm talking about football. And then I just, it popped in my head, why don't I make a podcast? So that's how really I ended up here. I've just had a love for the game since I was a kid. And, I don't even care necessarily if this gets a lot of views and I get famous. I just love to talk about the game. So I hope you enjoy as much as I enjoy talking about the game and listening to people talk about the game. So, this is an exciting season going into this year, and there's a lot of great storylines. and it's going to be exciting. All right, hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next week.